None of this will happen overnight. You must hold on to your ideas and always have the courage to speak your mind.
It was scary, and sitting there, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm a person of the world. I'm pretty streetwise, and I was scared because I didn't know where I could go.
Fear is very powerful. It can paralyze some people to the point that they'll let just about anything happen without reporting it.
Well, fear has many sides. Some people have a bad dream and they're afraid. Some people are just afraid to face people. So it must be awful to have a fear of somebody.
It's not good having to have to depend on anybody, particularly when you're physically dependent.
And I didn't know what they could do to me. I didn't know if they could just literally say, you have to leave, and I'd have to I couldn't drive. I didn't know, if they would put me and my belongings on the sidewalk outside the place. They certainly didn't try to tell me that that couldn't happen. They were pretty adamant that, hey, you're out of here.
It's an experience that you don't want to ever have to deal with.
People in long-term facilities do have that fear.
And if you're afraid of anything, I don't care how little, how big it is, you should be able to tell somebody, whether it be for yourself or for someone else.
Fear of retaliation is not something you can look up in a dictionary. But if you live in a setting where you depend on others to care for you, you know exactly what it is.
I was an avid biker. Most times a person see me, I was on my bike. I jogged, I worked out, I exercised, calisthenics, the whole 9 yards. And that's one thing I always strived on is taking care of myself because you only got one body, So I took care of it the best I could.
Where I lived before I came here, I lived in a residence, a senior residence, and I was able to walk, and it was a whole different type of a life. We went out every Friday for lunch, and they had a bus, and we used to go shopping, grocery shopping, dress shopping, and then in the afternoons we'd go out for a nice drive sometimes and stop for ice cream.
I had my own apartment. My son lived in Maine, and he came down for the summers. So in the summers, I told everybody, my summers are my summers with my son.
I always did things on my own, in my own way, for better or for worse. I've started a couple companies on my own. I've been in partners with other people in certain endeavors. I was able to work on my own cars. I was pretty mechanically inclined. So all those things obviously were gone at that point. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to do any of that again.
I would have never had imagined seeing myself in this condition at this stage in my life.
Awful. To be so independent and then to have somebody take me to a bathroom.
When you first come here, you don't know what what you're giving up. You feel like you're giving up everything.
I can't leave. I can't even take care of myself. So I kind of just knuckled under to the pressure that they were applying to do what they asked me to do. I didn't know what the consequences would be, but I knew that I was in no position to whatever the consequences were, it was not going to be good for me because I was in no position to argue.
You just want to get along with people and friendly, and you have to work with the person every day. So you're making conversation and you're going about your care, but if something feels wrong, it probably is wrong.
Well, yes, when it would come time for my shower, and they were repairing the shower on our floor, so we were supposed to come back over here. And she didn't want to drag me because I had to be pushed in a chair. So she would try and take me into one of the residence rooms that had a private shower. I didn't feel right going into this party's room, and she said, well, this party doesn't get out of bed, and I said, I don't care. I just had my own principles. I mean, I respected her. It was her private room. I didn't have a private room, so I had to take my shower with all the others. And she did that 2 or 3 times. And then when she was caught taking me out, and she shook her finger at me like I was a 3-year-old child, and that's when I snapped. I said, you're not going to shake your finger and scold me like I was a 3-year-old child. And I was never sorry afterwards, even though I told the head nurse, and afterwards she picked on me too a lot, the head nurse, and I told her one day, I said, you're picking on me, why? I said, you have to have a scapegoat on every floor? And then we became good friends.
Reporting someone raising their voice to you is easy, but there are other kinds of things that the caregiver can do that aren't quite as cut and dry.
There's things such as not answering call bells when they're mad at you. Your dinner tray is delivered last when it used to be first. Things like this. Or, you know, you've said to them, I need you, and they walk by.
They're going to be mean to me. They're going to keep food away from me. They won't give me water. They won't come in and change me.
You know, it's like you're being bullied. And that's almost sometimes, retaliation can be almost like bullying, I think.
So I filed a formal complaint. And it had to do with the time of simply taking some medication. And then she going to say that it was a certain time that it had to be done. It wasn't supposed to have been done now, and it wasn't. I wasn't comfortable accepting no medication from her because of this complaint that was filed. I don't want nothing from somebody that I got some paperwork in against them.
Speak out. I know it's scary, but find either a resident council president, another resident that seems to have somebody's ear, or sympathetic staff members, which in my case, there was plenty of them around. And if they get enough residents and staff together, they sometimes can, confront a problem that's existing for everybody. The staff doesn't like it when residents are having a problem either, because it makes their job harder. And if worse comes to worse, obviously, always call ombudsman.
Found myself invited into the resident activities. And that was a beginning for me because I got involved in the resident council.
Once we started putting up flyers in the elevators and things, more came. And then I got on the PA system 3 days in a row before. And they kind of heard it, Then I would say things like, this is your home. If you want changes, you should come down and talk about them.
The residents being heard was as important as anything was actually done to correct the problem. I think the fact that they were able to at least voice their opinion is important. And then it created a paper trail for follow-up because it was in somebody's notes. And after so many times in somebody's notes, we were able to go to Ombudsman or another organization and say, listen, we brought this problem up 3, 4, 5 times and it hasn't been fixed yet. So what do we do now?
We have a Bill of Rights when we come here. And the resident right says you have the right to raise grievances without fear of discrimination or reprisal.
How would you feel, this is the way I put it to them, how would you feel if your mother, your wife, your sister, any of your family was in a place like this, and at night when they were supposed to be changing her, or she called for something and the bell wasn't answered? How would you feel?
Anybody can tell, well, whether or not you taking care of somebody like they was a member of your family. And that's the way I want to be taken care of. You ain't got to love me or none of that. Take care of me like I was your brother or your nephew or your son.
I've lived my life. I'm not afraid of dying. It's how anybody would retaliate against me now.
It behooves a facility to create an atmosphere where resident of open communication, where residents can speak their mind, because when people speak their mind, they become confident and empowered. And when they're empowered, their quality of life improves. A nursing home can be a home too, and it is home. And I know I have the right to respect and dignity and all those things.